out my request sheet, and I was so impressed that we found my requested wine. I had asked for a very specific bottle of wine that is extremely hard to get. And they not only found a couple bottles of it, they found the more top tier version of it, and they got me a case of it. My only upset was that most of the other guests, our crew, were not wine drinkers. They were like tequila shots, they were like beer, they were cocktail, cocktail, cocktail. And I was like, can we not have a sophisticated wine night? And I ended up missing a night on the boat because I had turned up with a positive COVID test, which of course turned out to be a false positive. But I lost a lot of opportunity to enjoy that wine. And I still shed a tear thinking about that wine and the fact that a whole case of it was purchased and no one was down to get all sophisticated and snobby and drink a really fucking expensive bottle of wine with me. So, yeah, that one's actually a heartbreaker. That's a heartbreaker. I was so impressed with the dishes that chef prepared. I mean, we got everything we asked for. It was ridiculous to see everyone get the dish they dreamed of. I mean, the big gay brunch was one for the books. It wasn't just that the presentation was so fucking hilarious. I mean, we had sausages and eggs that were shaped like ejaculating penises. There was little mayonnaise coming out the top of it. It wasn't that there was glitter on our glitter food, but, it was that the care was put into it. One of our guests, Jesse, was such a devout and extreme vegan with a bunch of other dietary concerns that, like, satisfying Jesse is one thing, but blowing Jesse's mind was another thing. And, Chef Zarina was just so brilliant in finding a way to include Jesse's dietary requirements. I mean, I think I remember a pretty spectacular gluten-free, keto, vegan, whatever stack of rainbow colored pancakes that were so delicious. It was like so delicious you didn't even know it was, made with these precautions in place. So yeah, I was blown away. But it was our billionaire's breakfast that still has me drooling. We were gluttonous. We ordered everything that you could salivate about. I mean, caviar, biscuits and gravy, an obsessive amount of cheese and fruits and more pancakes and lobster, and it was ridiculous. It was a ridiculous presentation. My favorite adventure on the charter, that's what the word for this trip was, nonstop adventure, but I had this really incredible moment when I had my snorkeling mask on and we were stopping to explore the Great Barrier Reef. I saw colors that I didn't know existed. I saw plant life and aquatic life that were so alien. I felt like I was on another planet. I had no idea that Earth carried this much beauty in these complex, detailed ways. I was speechless down there. I know this sounds ridiculous, but like, I don't know. I had like a biblical reckoning underwater. I was like certain that God was down there. And I'm not a religious person, but it was just that level of beauty that I can only really relate it to like a religious experience. But it was. Um, I didn't take any of it for granted. All I remember is the sound of my breathing and pushing the water out the top of the snorkel and getting my head above water to see who else had that look on their face of, I cannot believe I'm doing this. It was unbelievable. Pinch me. I look back and say, did I really get to do that? That was really special. The snorkeling the Great Barrier Reef, top tier memory of my life. For me, when we went kayaking into that dark, terrifying storm, I was on the kayak with Joao. He's extremely sexy, okay? South African, strong guy, just gorgeous. We didn't have a camera crew with us. We were just out there braving the war that was the ocean in a storm. And yeah, it was sexy and fun. And I don't know, I felt like we were living in an action movie, and I didn't know if we would survive it together. And I don't know, it was kind of fun to like play damsel for a moment and be like, oh my God, Joao, I don't know if we're gonna make it. Like, not for nothing, when the storm got really, really bad, we had to get off the kayaks and swim. And I actually felt so breathless and terrified. And I was like, I hope he has to give me mouth to mouth. How did the crew support and assist me during the activities? No one gave me mouth to mouth, but they reciprocated my flirting. And that is a massive support system for me. I'm a huge flirt. I need you to not reject them wholeheartedly. I'm always welcome for you to tell me, hey, it's too much, Laura. But they flirted. Yeah. And that gets me going. That's the greatest drug of all. Are you kidding? So yeah, I liked and appreciated all the flirting that was going on. They supported me that way. Also, like constantly asking if there was anything I needed. And I sometimes wondered, did they need me to be more demanding? Did they need me to become more of a diva? Um, was I not being diva-ish enough? I was so appreciative of the journey. I mean, we all were. I wondered, did they want us to go harder? Should I have told someone to massage my feet every hour of the day? Probably. And you know what? Bring me back on the show. I will have my demands and they will be extreme. The captain and I shared a very beautiful departure from each other. When I was stepping off the boat, he told me that I am such an original and that he will never forget me. And that makes me melt. Oh, God. Those are the words to say I'm unforgettable. Come on. And he meant it. I could feel his heart beating through his chest when we embraced, and I could feel his body heat right up against mine. I mean, we all cried. We all cried, but I cried about that goodbye because I don't know, it felt like at the end of Lord of the Rings when they all meet back at the Shire and they're sitting down, catching their breath, sharing that pint. I was like, yeah, we just did that. We just survived that. Now I have to say goodbye to you, you know, but it was also like the Wizard of Oz when Dorothy wakes up and says it was a dream and you were there and you were there. It was sobering to get back to land, but I'll never forget any of them. Um, Culver and I shared a very beautiful moment paddleboarding out on the private island. And, you know, I'm pretty sure his gorgeous thighs were right against the back of me as we were working that paddleboard. Also, the horrible storm that we got through, that Joao saved my life. Like, I'm not joking. This was fucking action packed. They were very loving, all of them. Margot was so loving. Margot told me she went through my garbage and found all of the fabulous outfits I had thrown out, and she was going to keep them. And I hope to dear whomever is up there that she has made good use of them, because I did unload a lot of really funky attire. I think anytime you have a one night stand when you're out traveling, that's some daring shit. There have been a couple of those, but I did, I don't know, it was called like the Path of the Gods in the Amalfi Coast, and it took you through some crazy terrain, like mountainside, muddy, deep hills. I love hiking. So that was a long and exhausting hike. Afterwards, I felt so accomplished. I felt invincible. So, I mean, I will always tell you if you're on a vacation, go on foot and take a hike, actually, until you are breathless and just emptied as a human. It's good for you. My next adventure, I'm going to be going to the Cannes Film Festival to hang out with a girlfriend of mine. We're going to see some movies and luxuriate on the glamorous beaches and do some, star sighting. I'm very excited. I'm also a huge film fan, so I hope to see some really cool flicks. I definitely, I brought my vibrator, okay? I brought my Hitachi magic wand because for me, the greatest stress reliever is having a little time with my vibrator. But unfortunately, it didn't cooperate with, even with the plug converter, it didn't cooperate with the voltage on the boat. So I had to go back to my old faithful methods of just exhausting my fingers and wrist. And I do remember a couple of times going down into my primary quarters and shutting that door and hoping to dear God that no one had a key to open it. And I mean cameras, I mean other guests. I needed time alone. And I got some business handled. But other than that, no, there were no hookups. Come on. Come on. I want to be invited back places. But yeah, no, we had some fun flirting. Were you attracted to any of the crew? Yeah. I can't pick. I cannot pick. Even Zarina, Chef Zarina. I was like, okay, I want to make out with you. They were all sexy. Adam was sexy in that like fun, young, fresh playboy kind of way. Um, I mean, Joao was just so strong and capable. And Culver looks like a fucking Calvin Klein model. And then the captain, like I said, there is so much mystery there. I had a crush on all of them. All of them. I was like, why can't we all just make out? Why can't we all just get in a big cuddle puddle and just survive this storm together? I went there mentally, I'll tell you that. I was really impressed to see how the crew transformed. I mean, they were very like well-to-do professionals from the jump. They all greeted us with like that almost stuffy level of like, I'm here to cater to you. I am your Jeeves. I am your butler. What can I do for you? But then when they got wild during our very first night and we had our like happy hour talent show, I was like, oh shit, we're going here. Okay. They're not holding back. They went hard. They had like ball gags in their mouths. They were wearing thongs. They had tassels on. They were grinding up on each other. Like they went for it, and that granted me all the permission in the world that I needed to know, oh, it's on. I'm going to flaunt it. I'm going to shake it around. I'm going to get wild with it. I mean, we definitely got wild with it. I don't actually know what goes on behind the scenes. I think that there's a lot that's kept from the guests of the charter, and rightfully so. If there was too much to tell, um, if we were too much in the know, it might break the magic spell. So, I mean, there's camera people running around. They won't talk to you. But they're running around, they're getting shots. They'll show up out of nowhere when you're in the middle of having what you think is a private discussion. My favorite theme party on the yacht was definitely our Wild Things party. This was our last night on the yacht. We had a big meat eater's delight. We were eating, meat off the bone with our hands. We were all dressed in our sexy animal print, and then I got to be dessert. I am such an ego Aries. You know what I mean? I was like, Chef Zarina, I want to be dessert. And it was such a sensual experience having her paint my body with warm chocolate and warm caramel and placing little bites of cake all over my body and drizzling and speckling with dusts and flecks of gold. I mean, it was like a fucking fantasy. It was a wet dream. Are you kidding? I wanted more action on my body, but everyone was so tired by that time. They were really tired. They were just like picking up a piece of cake and eating it. I wanted them to like drag their tongue from my toe to the tip of my finger, and I mean through the armpit. But yeah, no, we had a really incredible evening that evening. That was probably my favorite night. We had naked hot tub parties where we stared at the sky with a full carpet of stars above us. We were clinking our drinks and rubbing our bodies. We were taking shots off each other. We were sucking toes. I remember Bicop sucked Jesse's toes. There was a moment that I think won't be seen, but who knows, where Sky insisted on the quickest taste of pussy he could imagine. And so, of course, I'm always going to offer someone an experience that they're curious about having. Where did that happen? Who knows? Was it caught? Who knows? Will it show up in the show? Who knows? The parties were wild. There was a lot of dancing and taking your clothes off and asking the deckhands to confess to things that may or may not make the show, but we definitely got an intimate understanding of each other, at least conversationally. It was an incredible, wild ride. And I will never forget it. So thank you, CAM4, for bringing me. Please bring me back. I mean, the wildest thing that happened was the night that I was taken off the boat and shuttled back to shore in the scariest ride through the rockiest waters you could ever imagine. Joao and I were taken from the boat and, for 2 hours traveled through blackness in a turbine of waves. And it was all very scary. I wasn't sure if I would be welcomed back onto the show. I was crying a lot. I was worried that I would never return to this dreamland of below deck ever again. But sure enough, the next morning, I was back on that damn boat and ready for adventure. So, yeah, I had the time of my life. Thank you for having me. I hope for many more journeys ahead.